Hello, friends. I'm no therapist, but I'm your host, Stephanie Goodman. I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a woman of faith. Often friends ask me how I have a successful marriage while blending families and staying optimistic in life. This podcast features people with real-life stories about success in relationships and triumph over trial. When hardships and trials hit our lives, it's easy to ask, why did this happen to me? What did I ever do to deserve this? Today, I have the privilege to visit with rock artist Ophi as he tells his story of hardships and depression and how he is overcoming them. Welcome to a new episode of I'm No Therapist, but today I want to introduce to you a dear friend of mine, Ophi. Now, Ophi and I met on the set of LDS Film Festival. We were introduced to him as a talent, and we had no idea how much we would fall in love with this man, and I'm excited for you to fall in love with him, as I think you will. Ophi?
Thank you for having me. That was sweet, too, that introduction. That was a very, very nice.
Tell me, when did becoming a performer sink into your heart for the first time?
First time ever. My brothers took me to my very first concert ever. They surprised me with tickets to Linkin Park. And that was actually, so my birthday is December 26th, which is the worst birthday in the world. But my sister got me an album. First 6 songs were for Christmas. The next 6 songs were for my birthday. That's how she did it. And it was Linkin Park. And so I just fell in love with the band. I loved the emotion. It was really, this was back with the Walkman days, the Sony Walkmans, the CD. And,
right.
Back in the day, you'd get an album and you'd read the lyrics, you'd look at the artwork. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel bad for kids nowadays that didn't get that experience. Just like, as I'm sure older people are like, you don't know what it was like with the 8-track, and then I had to sit by the radio and the knob, no, I didn't have that. But what I had was awesome. And I would study Linkin Park. And so my older brother and my other older brother, they were like, let's get him tickets, let's go. And so we went, and I think I was 13 or 14. And it was in Long Beach, California. And I saw Linkin Park play. And I was just blown away at what a human could do. What this guy could do live, and just the way he could make me feel. He didn't know who I was, we'd never met. Mm-hmm. And just, I watched him on stage, and it just, something clicked. And I was like, I want to do that for the rest of my life. I just want to do that. So it took some course corrections in my life, and good relationships and bad relationships. And then it got to a point where I now can finally do this full time, and this is all I do. And I'm so happy, and I love it.
I have been in the audience, and I've seen the way that you have reached out to everyone. They feel like they're your best friend. Doesn't matter who you're pointing at. You are so easy to interact with, and I know that you are changing hearts. Just as your heart was changed to be a performer by Linkin Park, you're definitely doing that for
That's
you.
So sweet. Thank you. I think good performers. Here's my analogy of bad performers and good performers. Bad performers get up and say, give me your attention, and then they suck your energy, and it's about them. And it's just like, oh, okay, I just gave this guy my money, my time, my attention, and my energy, and I got nothing out of that experience. Where then there's great performers like Chester Bennington, Dave Grohl, Michael Jackson, Prince, where you give them your attention, and they give you an experience. And you feel like you paid for something, and you own it. You own that. Like, I own that experience I had with Linkin Park. Like, that changed my life. It literally did. And that's what I think about every time I go on stage. Is I think, like, this is going to be an experience for the one. We're going to find the one somehow. And just grateful I've been able to do that. So thank you.
So is that somebody that you hope to one day meet and be able to tell your story to?
So Linkin Park, yes. Unfortunately, back in 2017, the lead singer, Chester Bennington, committed suicide. And that was another reason why suicide prevention and awareness is so big to me. Because I remember I was actually on a cruise with my ex-wife, and she woke me up and she said, I don't know how to tell you this. And I was like, instantly knew something was wrong. What happened? What, are we dying? Is the ship sinking? What's going on? And she said, Chester Bennington just killed himself. And I was like, I just woke up, so I was like, what? How do you even know who that is? What's going on? Mm-hmm. And then I read it, and I was bawling my eyes out. And even, every once in a while, I'll still cry about it. I mean, because I'll never have a chance, at least in this life, to thank him. But you better believe in the next, he is one of the first people I'm going to give the biggest hug to and just say thank you. And, not to put too much of a suicide plug in, but no, that came out of left field. It was like Robinwilliams, where you see these very happy people Correct. That seem to have everything,
right? And
they're the ones that are barely holding on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, someday I hope to just make him proud.
Well, Ophia, I really appreciate you being vulnerable like that. I would actually love to go into that concept because we've had some people that have talked about suicide, right?
Yeah.
And this is an ugly word. Let's put it out there. It is an ugly word, and it's a lonely word. But it's also a word that is part of our world, and we need to be aware of it.
Well said. Yeah.
So, Ophi, how has suicide touched your life?
There's a couple stories with it. The first time ever suicide was even introduced to my life, it was around... I just realized most of my stories happened when I was 13 or 14. I'm like, man, that was a rough year for my life, but I learned so much. A lot of great things have been done by 14-year-olds, But there was a lady at my church, and growing up, my parents got divorced when I was 10, and my dad and most of my siblings all lived in, a place in Victorville, and then my mom and I, and at the time my little sister, we all lived in another part of Victorville called Apple Valley. I went to 14 different schools before, or 14 different cities before high school. So it's hard to keep track of all these places, but we moved around a ton, right?
Okay.
And anyway, long story short, a lot of these ladies at my church raised me. They just helped my mom. They knew the demons she was battling, and everything from bipolar disorder to possibly schizophrenia, mental illness, just a lot of demons that my mom raising me. I don't think anybody else could have done it. I really do owe her a lot in that regard, and I respect that she did her best going through everything that she was going through that I know now as an adult. I'm like, wow, I'm very grateful for that. And then, we talked previously, I haven't talked to my mom in probably 10, 12 years, but I'm very grateful for her for that. So anyway, so a lot of these sisters or women raised me in this church. And so my mom and I had decided every Mother's Day we were going to call every single one of them and thank them and say Happy Mother's Day. And back in the day, again, saying all this back in the day stuff, it was like a list of people that were at your church, and you could see who was attending your church, right?
Okay.
And so we would go through, and if it took 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, we would call them and say, Happy Mother's Day.
Wow.
And I loved them, and I knew most of them very well. They were just every time I'd see them on Sunday or church activities or church lunches or dinners, they were just always so sweet to me and so kind. But there was this particular sister or lady that was telling everybody that she was going to go to her sister's for the summer. And it was, the beginning of May. It was not quite yet Mother's Day. And she just said, I just want to get out of Victorville and just go see my sister in Arizona for a couple months. I might stay there longer. And so, everybody said, all right, well, have fun, be safe. And Mother's Day came around, and we're going through the list. And I remember I got to her name. And I see her name, and I start to dial, and I hang up. And I think, no, she probably won't be back till August. That's going to be weird, hearing a message all the way back in May. And it's just kind of weird. It'll be too late. I'll see her when I see her. And I skip the name. We find out in July that she had hung herself in Victorville. This is in the summer, so it got up to 110, 113 degrees, but had hung herself and never went to Arizona. And her neighbor had found her because everybody thought this sister left Arizona. And she said, the lady that found her said that she was walking past her house because they were neighbors, and something kept pushing her back. And she's like, what am I doing? And something just said, go in, break in. And she's like, I'm not going to break in. Like, I don't, she's gone. Her house is fine. Ends up breaking in and discovering the body. And I remember thinking when I heard that story, that I was like, I failed. Like, what if out of all the chances, this was God's last time to reach out to her. What if just one little happy Mother's Day would have been like, okay, at least there's one person that cares about me. And that broke me for years. And then going to counseling and learning that that wasn't my fault. It wasn't anything that I did wrong. Yeah. It marked me in a good way. Not saying obviously her death was good by any means, but I learned to love more fiercely. And that when somebody's name pops into my brain, I just act on it. If somebody says, if my heart or something just like, hey, check on Jesse, see how he's doing. Done. I just do it. Because you just never know. Or if I'm sitting next to somebody, and I know to some people it's kind of weird, but if I'm next to somebody at like a restaurant and I like their jacket, I'll tell them. If I like the earrings, you have beautiful earrings, I love them. I'll just say it. Now, I don't care if it's weird anymore. It used to bug me because sometimes you have that mindset of like, oh, I don't want to call Dave. He might think that's weird. He might think I'm in love with him. I don't want to call him. I'm a guy. Or I don't want to call my brother. That's weird. Or my sister. Forget it. It's not up to you if it's weird. It doesn't matter. And so that was my first experience. Okay, and I'll move on fast to the next experience was when I was 16. I had reached my limit. I had reached what I thought was the end of my existence on this earth, just going through the problems that I did in Victorville, California. And so I ended up, I didn't know where to get drugs, so I didn't do an overdose, and I was too scared of guns and knives, and I didn't want to hurt myself that way. I just thought, no, I can't do I got to do something that's just like done. And I can't hang myself because I'll talk myself out of it. So what do I do? And the thought that hit me was I'm going to go to the busiest street in Victorville, in this little highway. I'm going to wear all black and I'm going to lay face down on the street. And I'm just going to wait. And to be frank and honest, I wanted to feel as much physical pain, death, or the most amount of pain to just be broken. And it was a very weird experience, but I know I'm not alone because I know other people do that where they just want to hurt. And it is the loneliest, weirdest feeling where you just want to feel death or the most amount of pain. And so at 16, I went out and I crawled on the street and I was just crying. I was yelling at God. I was yelling at who I thought God was or what I thought God was. I was just mad at my mom. I was mad at my family. I was just mad at everything, and laid face down and just waited. And I remember the adrenaline was insane because I'm just sitting there shaking, knowing any second. And this is the busiest street. And I remember just laying there and then pausing and hearing nothing. No cars, no people, no nothing. Quietest night in Victorville, in like the history of Victorville. And I'm sitting there and I remember looking up and I had this call Angel, who was at the time my best friend. Call him. Just give me that. Just will you call him? No, I'm not going to call anybody. I'm done. Just call Angel. Fine. Take out the phone and I call him and I tell him what I'm going through and he just says, get the blank out of the road. What do you? And he gets in his mom's car with him or with his mom and they drive and they come pick me up and then I stayed with them for like a week and a half. And the crazy part about that story is it felt like eternity, but I was there for a good 5 to 10 minutes on the ground crying with nothing. The second I get up and I hit the sidewalk, cars, both directions. Oh. And I'm just, as a kid, I look, are you kidding me? You couldn't have said that 5 minutes earlier. But now as an adult, I'm like, thank you. Mm-hmm. Whatever that was that stopped those cars.
Wow.
Just thank you.
Wow. And I have to say thank you because you have enriched my life with just being who you are. The light that you bring into the room, the passion that you bring into the room, and the love that you bring into the room is so real.
I never take those compliments lightly. I want you to know that because things like that help me keep staying every day. It's not like, I feel like when people overcome suicide, that phrase, I've seen people say like, I beat suicide. And I used to think when I was younger and more naive, duh, you're alive. Every day that you live, you beat it. And I understand how much of an accomplishment and a victory that is. Mm-hmm. That when people say like, dude, I chose not to die tonight and I decided to live today. I'm like, that's a marathon. You just ran a marathon. You just did an Ironman. Mm. And, you said earlier, suicide is a scary word, and I agree. And it is such an ugly word, and, it accompanies a lot of depression and loneliness, and the word that I want to take the stigma away from is mental illness. that, there are times where people are sick and that's why they take their life. But then there's times where people are lonely and that's why they take their life. Then there's times where people are afraid. There's been times in my life where I thought the easiest option would be to just kill myself.
Yeah.
I'd be out of debt. I would never have to fail. I don't have to go through not being loved. I don't have to worry about dating. I don't have to worry about, that's just the best, easiest option. And so, mental illness, it is a real thing, but it's, if I came to this podcast with a broken arm, would you look at me any different? Absolutely not.
No.
You'd ask, oh, what happened to your arm? But it's like, oh, you broke your arm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah. But then you're like, you're still worth everything that I see.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Sometimes you break your mental arm or break your mental whatever. And if we can just get people to understand, like, that's okay. Everybody has mental illness because everybody has a mental health bar. So, I mean, and there's different degrees. Sometimes you catch a cold. Sometimes you get cancer. There is a degree. And I want people to understand it's okay if your mental health is away from the healthy side and more on the illness side, because there are things you can do to bring it back to have a healthier mentality.
That is so powerful. So powerful, Ophi. Can you share with me how you got out of that space of wanting to take your own life? Who mentored you through that process? And did you find yourself falling in love with yourself? What was the antidote to your suicide move?
It's a good wholesome question, and I appreciate it. So when I was 17, I got a call that my mom had just overdosed on a bunch of drugs, prescription drugs, painkiller, whatever. I got a call, and I was at the time in a band. I was 17. That's when I thought I was gonna make it. I was gonna be super famous at 17. And I got a call. I rushed to this friend's house. We got the door open. My mom had taken a bunch of pills and then went to the bathtub. And we pulled her out and got her dressed. And I just remember seeing, my mom seizing and then calling the cops and just experiencing that, watching the life go out of this person's, my mom, and I was, at the time, a mama's boy. I definitely was very much close to my mom. And so watching her go through this, I'm scared. I'm a 17-year-old helpless man. I'm like, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what to do. How do you fix somebody that does that? I don't know. I don't know what to do. And so we call the cops. Anyway, take her to the hospital. They heal her. They help her. And my mom grabs my hand and says, "You can't tell them what happened. Just promise me you will not tell them. If you tell them what happened, they'll take me away. I might go to jail. I might go to a nut house. Like I just made a mistake." And I remember telling my mom, "Okay, I'll do it." And so the doctors, they ask. And I remember this doctor knew exactly what my mom did. And I'll never forget the look that he gave me. But he said, "What happened to your mom?" And I said, I think she just messed up her medications." And he looked at me again and he just said, "What happened to your mom?" And I said, "I think she just messed up her medications." And I remember the disappointed look on his face as he signed off, and then they released my mom. I bring that story up because I, in my older years, have hated myself for not telling the truth, for not saying, yeah, she needs help. She broke her arm. She broke her whole body. Get her help. Because I was trying to protect her, because I was scared. Yeah. So that story, coupled with, it was actually about 2 years ago, and I haven't spoken about this much to anybody, but about 2 years ago, it hit me. It just hit me again, and I was living a happy life. I had gotten a divorce. I had quit my company. I moved to Utah. I met after years of dating, I met the love of my life. I started this band Ophi, and things I thought were going really, really well. And it just took one night of enough bad things to go wrong. That's the best way I can explain it. Enough bad things to go wrong. And I was like, I'm done. At the time I was 31, I think. 31. And I thought, I'm a loser. My music's not any good. I'm never going to make it. I'm not married. I'm divorced. I lost all my money. At the time, the IRS had come in and taken the last bit of savings I had because I had owed taxes. And I just thought, why would this girl that I'm in love with ever like me? Who would take a chance on my music? I'm a loser. And it was fact. I'm a loser. I'm never going to make it. No one's ever going to know who I am. I don't have anything to add. And I was I was brought back to that 16-year-old kid where I just said, I'm done. And I had tried to take my life. And as I was on my way to do it, because I was just going to find the highest cliff in Utah that I could find and drive off and just no seatbelt, just like go for it and just hit, crash, burn. And I'll be very vulnerable and frank about what happened because you asked that question. So I am in tears and I turned off my phone and I was going to do it. I was just like, I'm done. And as I'm driving and I'm at the edge of this, what looked to me like a good sized cliff, and I'm sitting in my car, I'm shaking and I'm talking to God, and I just said, I'm done. And I remember asking this question, why don't you care? I've tried all my life to be a really good person, to be honest, to do good and do things right. And I never did drugs, never tasted alcohol. And I'm in a rock band. That says something, but nothing. Not that those things make you a bad person by any means, but I'm saying for me, I had set up a standard that I had followed. And I thought, why don't you care? I'm done. And as I was about to, I heard this loud, calm voice in my heart. I know anybody that's not religious or spiritual just thinks I'm high, but I'm like, no, I promise. It was this loud voice that was calm and just called me by name, let me know that I was his son, and said, all these things aren't happening to you because I don't care. These things are happening to you because I do care.
Wow.
And then he said, you want to live an extraordinary life, you got to have extraordinary trials. And then I heard a very different voice. And this I don't think I've ever publicly shared, but I'm looking at a picture that you have that I would assume is Christ, Jesus. And it was a different voice speaking to a different part of my body that said, I don't know, man, I did some pretty amazing things in my 30s. Those voices is what stopped. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this phase. I will never again, and never say never, but for now, that was enough emotional and spiritual energy that I'm like, I think I learned a lot, and the purpose of life and the purpose of growth and just knowing that somebody cared. Now, I know at the time that my girlfriend, who's now my fiance, but girlfriend at the time, I know she cared. I know my bandmates cared. I know that my cousin and my dad and my older sister, I know that people cared. Right. But hearing that there was a higher power and knowing that he knows me, I was like, you're rooting for me, huh? Like, okay, I'm going to do this. That changed my whole life. And I can say honestly, from that moment, I have never looked back. When life gets hard, when things get down, I just go, good, I'm ready for this,
That's absolutely incredible. What a powerful, powerful experience. And thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that with us. I mean, I have recently been touched by suicide. Somebody that I illustrated a children's book for. And actually her book is about anti-bullying, believe it or not. But when you bully yourself, Ophi, when you bully yourself, that is the thickest darkness that you create around yourself. And it doesn't matter. Like you said, my girlfriend, my fiance would love me. There are so many people who love me, and it wasn't enough.
Yeah. You put yourself in a prison and you're the only person with the key. And you're the only person who knows where the lock is. And you can have everybody around you saying, I will open this, I'll break this for you. Yeah. But if you don't tell them where the lock is or unlock it yourself, you're absolutely right. The things we tell ourselves, I always joke, but not really joking, but I'm like, can you imagine God saying half the things to me that I tell myself? I'm a loser, I'm no good, I'm fat and ugly, I'll never be Jason Momoa.
Do we not start in the morning? First thing when we wake up, our attitude is what?
Most of the time, look like a train wreck.
What are we going to do today, man? And if you walk into the bathroom, you look in the mirror, man.
Yeah, that was a rough night. Yeah. I actually now intentionally set my day.
Please tell me about that.
I wake up. So this is anybody that knows me and we go anywhere, I will talk to everybody. Like I told you, I will just talk to them because I firmly believe that before this life, we knew each other. And what if we were best friends? What if we were homies? Just never know. So I'll wake up and literally think to myself, I could meet a new best friend today. Literally, I could meet. Then I say, I could have the best, greatest day of my life.
Wow.
And that's it. And then I'm ready to go. And then I welcome the day. And
that
I intentionally
is so powerful.
I intentionally set, I'm going to be a rock star today. I'm just going to get it. At anything that I do today, I'm just going to give it my all because today could be my last day. So I'm going to make sure that when I meet somebody, I leave a good impression and they know I care about them. When I do something, I'm going to do a darn good job. When I play music, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to flush out everything else and I'm just going to play music. And then every day I watch 2 to 3 full concerts from any bands, famous, non-famous, and I study them. It's part of like my thing. And so every day I watch and I enjoy those concerts and I enjoy the heck out of them. And I'm in my own little world. And for those moments, time freezes and I just watch the concerts and I just see what's going on. And I'm there, I'm one, you know? And I find enjoyment. And then when I'm hanging out, spending time with people, I want to make sure that I'm present. You know, we all fall in. I do it too. I'm not perfect by any means on any of the things that I do. There are days that I fall short and wake up and I'm like, I'm going to be an okay rock star today. You know, there are days like that. But there's times that me and my fiance will be on dates and you get that temptation to look at Instagram, and it's not because you don't want to spend time. That's just the world we live in. You know, before it was newspapers,
it's a world of distraction, right?
Yeah, it's a world of distraction.
Yeah.
I'm trying so hard to not do that, but to be present.
Yes. Yeah. Opie, this has been incredible. I am very curious to know, because you've had some hard things in your life, right?
Sure.
And you've pulled yourself out of some dark places. What have you learned, or who taught you about forgiveness?
I remember, I feel like it's been a lot of people, directly and indirectly.
Yes.
You know, there's been a lot of trial and error, people that I haven't forgiven, and just think, I don't feel good, you know, that I don't forgive this person. I told you earlier I'm an open book, but there are certain people, I won't mention names to protect them, but right. There's a certain person in my life who is a family member who has vocally said they wish death upon me and that their life would be so much better if I died, that if I was just gone. And I remember me and this particular person, we parted ways years ago. And then about 2 or 3 years later, my sister told me that person had said that. And they said, can you believe that they said that their life would be better if you died? If you got into a horrible car crash, you died, whatever, they would finally be at peace. And I started laughing. And my sister looked at me like, you maniac, you psycho, why are you laughing? And I said, I had forgotten that person hates me. I forgot about that. Wow. And she looked at me and said, what do you mean? And I was like, because I don't put that anywhere in me. If that person hates me, that's on them. I wish the best for that person.
Yeah.
And I'm free.
Yeah.
That person has no power over me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, that poor person has put me here in the forefront of their mind every day to go as far to vocalize and say, because I believe there is power in words. So they'd put that in their forefront every day, that they hope he dies, hope he dies. And me, I hope he thrives. I hope that guy gets happy.
Ooh, I love that. I hope he thrives.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it changes when you look at your enemies and you pray for them and you think, I hope your business does well.
Yeah.
I hope you find happiness. I hope you and your wife love each other. And you mean it, you automatically, I don't know what it is, but you become so powerful.
Yeah. I believe that we are all intertwined.
Yes. Yeah.
And as long as we give hope and love to those, like you said, praying for your enemies, that's what sets us free.
Yeah.
You know, there's an analogy that I've recently learned, because I am passionate about the concept of forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And it's this. Holding on to a grudge is like burning down your house to get rid of a rat.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. You lose the house. That's
how ridiculous is that? And yet that's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
When we hold on to a grudge, we're burning down our house to get rid of a small, tiny rat.
The one I heard it's slightly different was hating somebody is like you drinking poison and hoping they die.
Right.
And you hear that and you're like, yeah, I don't allow anybody to have power over me. I just don't. I believe in that concept so much that if I take the energy and time to hate somebody, they're my master. I'm serving them. Ooh. And I'm like, my life is too valuable.
Yeah.
And so I don't hate people.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about cutting certain people out of your life. And I know that's kind of like
that's okay to release.
I think so too.
Or replenish, right?
Yeah. I think there comes a time where you say, my analogy is this.
Okay.
I believe I'm on a ship. And at certain times in my life, like right now, I need sails. I don't need anchors. And there are some people that I meet that right now in their life, they're just an anchor on my ship. And I can't have that right now. Maybe someday there will be a time where I need an anchor, but right now I need sails. And that to me is such an easier way to let people go. Or it's not personal.
Right.
I feel like God gave us a brain for a reason. And this, I don't know if this is doctrine or whatever, but the brain is above the heart. And I think that's a reason. I think that to be logical is so important. I think the point of it was to understand what's going on here and master it. Because emotions it's when you get in fights. It's when you do stupid stuff. That's when you want to kill yourself, is when you let that emotion take over. Mm-hmm. Because logically, no, that's not going to make me feel better if I kill myself. It's not. Emotionally, I feel like it will. Yeah. But getting run over by a semi when you're 16 years old and surviving that's not going to be good. That's not. So for me, logic, I like making sure I make decisions based on logic and get to enjoy the emotion of everything. And I look at it that way.
That's powerful. When I was learning about forgiveness, the idea of if they knew better, they'd do better is something that I grab onto solidly. Yeah. Because I do believe that we're all in a state of confusion. Yeah. We've all been angry and said stupid things or done stupid things. And so it's my job to give that compassion. Maybe I don't understand everything and I don't have any idea what influenced them to be at that point. Yeah. But I get to do my part.
I love that. I had one time I was in California and I was at LA Fitness. And I remember I was getting a drink of water and I heard these two boys making fun of a very large woman who was on the treadmill. And they were away from her. They couldn't hear her, thank goodness. But they were saying some awful things. And I remember putting my head down and looking up, and they walked away. And I remember looking at that girl and this thought hit me. You have no idea what that person's been through. You don't know if this is day 1 or day 10,000 that she's on that treadmill. And then that thought hit me. She's here. No matter what, for what, maybe she's there because she just likes the TV that's on. Doesn't matter. It's not my place. We're in the same gym together. I'm no better. I'm no worse. She's there sweating just like I am.
And that could have been the scariest decision that she made that day.
It could have been. I mean, I've been there. I've been scared to go to the gym when everybody that apparently that's buff in Utah decides to go to the gym. And then there's chubby old me just being like, okay, what's going on,
How do I use this?
Yeah, that's the worst, And then I had this analogy. I love analogies, if you can't tell, but it makes sense in my brain. I feel like you meet people on different pages of the book they're writing. So you met me, let's say, on page 3,200, right?
Yes.
You don't know what happened in the last couple pages unless you ask me about it.
Right.
But you weren't there to read all those pages.
Correct.
So to judge, imagine, since we have Kels here, imagine you were walking in on a 3-hour movie of a Star Wars movie, never heard of it, but you walk in maybe 2 hours and 30 minutes into the film. You're not going to know who the bad guy is, what's going on, why that guy did that, but you're making judgments.
Why people love that person, why people hate that person.
Yeah, why is this guy, Darth Vader, that's his name? Darth Vader, why is he in a mask? What happened? And I feel like in life we do that. We meet people and we subconsciously, we judge, which I think having judgments is fine. I think that's okay because you need that, right? I
absolutely agree with you.
Where you're like, okay, that's not an energy I want to bring in. Or maybe I judge that person as a sail or an anchor. But still, to judge the worth of that person based on what page you're on in their book, I'm like, dude, you didn't read the last 10,000 pages. You don't know what I've been through.
Right.
And when you start looking at people that way, you learn everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And again, my mom, I have not talked to my mom in years. And there's been times that I've hated her. There's been times that I've been so mad at her. There's been times that I thought, how come I have friends that have awesome moms and my mom doesn't even know if I'm alive? Like, doesn't, And I'm like, there's been times I've been so mad. And then I think, man, I met my mom when, how old was she? 38, 39? She had a whole life before I was born. And I don't know that much of it. I don't know what she went through. And it has helped me forgive people and just being more tolerant and understanding. Someday I'll get to know. Well, I hope. Someday I'll get the chance to read that book and find out why our relationship is the way it is.
Right.
One of my favorite stories about forgiveness is actually my dad. Growing up, like I said, I lived with my mom, and my dad and I were not close. And then after my divorce, him and I saw a lot of similarities in our divorces and in our marriage. And we just sort of started working our relationship. And we both decided this was worth it, to give it a shot. I was the least favorite, he'll tell you, I was the least favorite boy out of all 4 boys. I was the least favorite kid out of all 6 kids. I really was. We just weren't close. Huh. And now my dad is one of my best friends, one of my closest friends. And having that forgiveness where I just say, I know you were doing your best. I've never been you, married to my mom, raising us kids. I don't know. And if that's something, if I could tell the teens or the kids, like, dude, your parents, 1, have lived a life. 2, they are doing their best to raise you. And you're not an easy person to raise. I don't care who you are. I don't care what kid you are. It's not easy. I'm not a parent yet, but I know my kids are going to challenge me. And I'm not going to be perfect. Like, I know it. And I'm so grateful for the things my dad has done and been through and who he is now, that I have the relationship that I have with him. I wouldn't change it for anything. Forgiveness on both sides. He's forgiven me. I've forgiven him. And I love him. And that is such a cool experience to be able to say now. Like, my friends that have known me for years, I go, me and my dad are talking? They're like, no, your dad. I'm like, yeah, we're like bros. It's crazy.
So that leads me to my next question. Sure. Being able to look back on the relationships that you've had, and you're coming up with the relationship of the love of your life.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What would you bring into this relationship now that you've learned from in the past?
I had a counselor tell me that marriage and divorce is not synonymous with success and failure. She said there's a lot of marriages that are failing, that have failed. There's a lot of divorces that were successful. That was my first step in the right direction. Second question was the hardest question a psychiatrist or a therapist has ever asked me. She said, have you ever dated somebody that didn't need you? That wasn't broken, wasn't hurting, that was just complete. She made me sit there and go through each relationship, and I thought, no. And she said, why? And I really had to think about it. I had always gone for the girl that was hurting or that needed help. And again, not saying that people were broken, or this isn't a talk of their worth by any means. It's, my previous wife or my ex-wife had been married before, and then was in a relationship and was just she was just in a hurt place. And I saw that and I wanted to help. And then I had another relationship with a girl who was struggling with addiction, and I wanted to help. And it was all these things where, as a savior, she straight up said, my psychiatrist or therapist said, you have a savior complex. And I was like, yeah, I know. I'm trying to work on that. But, she asked, have you ever dated a girl that was better than you, that didn't need saving? And not that I'm like this perfect guy or whatever. I have my problems that I had to go through. But I said, no. And she said, why not? And after thinking about it for a couple minutes, I thought, because if I date somebody that doesn't need me, what's my value to them? I don't have any value if I can't help fix something.
Oh my gosh. Right? Like, mic drop right there.
Yeah.
Many of us are in relationships like that because we want to fix, as you said, the savior concept. But wow.
Because in my mind,
because we don't feel like we're needed if we're not fixing
we don't feel like we're
something.
useful, or we can add anything if we're not, it's like the guy who is rich and he's like, well, if I don't pay for everything, what's my value? And so for me, it was, if I could fix and help my ex-wife deal with things, I could fix my mom. That was the psychology behind it. This weird, the tie of that. And so I started changing my mindset, where I thought, okay, so I'm attracting these type of girls because I see myself a certain way. You always have those friends that are just like, man, I keep dating these awful girls, or I keep dating these awful guys, and one after another. And it's like, dude, then change what you're asking for. Change that. If, for example, you go to a restaurant and you keep getting sick, either change the meal or go to a different restaurant. It's that easy.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right? And we sit there, and my favorite one is if you're in a bad relationship and trying to decide if it's a bad relationship.
Yeah.
I had a good friend reach out, and she's like, I just don't know what to do. Should I break up? Should I do that? And it's just back and forth. And I said, when you get a plate of food, how many bites does it take? Do you need to take before you know if the meal is good or bad? Usually 1 or 2. Usually that first bite, and you're like, oh, this is the best meal I've ever had. Or you eat it, and you're like, I can't believe I paid money for this. I said, so imagine you keep eating that for years and years, and you keep saying, somewhere in this plate there's going to be a good bite. Yeah, well, you just ate 10 years of awful food to get that one bite that might be good or bad. Your taste buds might be desensitized by that time.
Right.
So for me...
And your spirits will be let down.
Yeah, for sure. And then you start seeing, like, I had to change... And I dated some awesome women after my marriage. And you'll never ever hear me say my ex-wife was bad or not a good person or just awful. Like, there's certain chemicals, you put them together, it's explosive. That's it.
Say that again.
There's certain chemicals that if you put together is explosive. And it'll kill people. And that was us. Her on her own right, awesome.
Right.
Me on my own right, awesome. With the right people.
In her...
That can bring the best parts out.
Yeah.
And so for me, I changed what I wanted, what I was asking for, because before it was, please God, great spirit, bring me somebody like this. And it was, no, great God, great spirit, help me to be this person. I want to be here.
Right.
And as soon as I got to that point, I ended up meeting the love of my life because I feel like I was ready.
Yep.
And again, not saying that I didn't meet awesome girls, but I always joke with my fiance, Sam. I always tell her, if I met you like a year before, I would have not recognized you. I would have screwed it up because I would have been too shy to, not even shy, just too insecure to approach you. Been like, I don't deserve a girl like that. This girl's got everything going for her. She doesn't need help. She is perfect. And if I go, I'm just going to mess it up. Then finally got to the point where I want to be good enough for this girl. And so it changed the dynamic.
Yeah.
And things that I'd learned from my previous marriage, I learned that to allow people to grow, allow them to make mistakes, not to judge, and just let them grow. I learned that you don't need to be with a project if that's not what you want to do. I was a project to her. She was a project to me.
Right.
The best thing that I learned is right now, you don't have to say it out loud, but think of your best friend. And if you're watching, listening, think of this exercise. Right now, think of your best friend. Who's your best friend in the world? Okay. Just think about that person.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it hard to be their best friend?
No.
Is it hard? No. If it was hard, they wouldn't be your best friend. It's
True.
easy.
Yeah.
Does it take work? I have a thing. I hate that phrase, it takes hard work. You always hear that in marriage. It takes hard work.
Marriage is hard work.
I hate that phrase.
Yeah.
And I say, no. And people go, you never been married. And I say, oh, yeah, actually, I have been. But I hate that phrase, hard work, because work is something you do out of necessity.
Yeah.
Yard work is hard work.
Right.
Going to work at a job you hate, it's work. Mm-hmm. I think it takes effort.
The old ball and chain? Ooh.
Yeah, no, I hate that.
What are you putting out there if you're saying that about your spouse?
Exactly. That's
Your
why I
best
say,
friend.
I don't say work, I say effort. I think of my best friend. He's actually in the band. Yeah. It takes, his birthday's tomorrow. So I'm going to call him, make sure he knows I love him. I'm going to take the time to spend with him. I'm going to go do, create experiences, all those things. Mm-hmm. And I think in dating and marriage, it should be like that. Is it hard work? It's like, then look at that. Look at why that's hard work and it's not effort. Look at why that's not fun. One thing I love is I have these adopted parents out in California, Craig and Lana Ward. And every time they get a chance, they're in their 70s. They've been married forever. Every time they get a chance to recount to people how they fell in love, they take it.
Uh-huh.
And you watch that energy just boom, boost up again, and they're back in love.
Yeah.
And every day, I remember we were surfing, and I was spending some time with them. And Lana came down, and she was getting ready to go do something, and she was all dolled up, and Craig's just looking at her, at his beautiful bride, and she leaves, and he looked at me, and he goes, do you want to know why Lana is so beautiful? And I was like, this should be interesting. I mean, she's 70, but yeah, okay. Where are you getting at with this? Yeah. And he said, because I make sure to let her know every single day how beautiful she is to me. And I have never forgotten that because he does that. And you see Lana, and Lana
is that work?
Oh, Lana, yes. Lana, this is how I put it. If God or the creator said right now, hey, I need a queen to rule this universe, Lana would be my first choice. And I know that's because of who she is, and then also because of the way that Craig builds her up. No one else is allowed to see her as anything other than that.
Yeah.
And so I'm taking that into my marriage, into my future wife. That when people, I mean, you guys have met Sam. When you see Sam, you just go, how did you land that? You know? And I'm like, it's because I understand I'm the 3 that lucked out with the 10. I get it. I get that this woman is just beautiful inside and out and is my best friend. And I do my best every single day to let her know that. And I think if we did that with not just our loved ones, but friends and family and other people, this world would be so cured in so many problems.
Yes, yes. The analogy that I have held on to for a long time is it is easier to be kind to strangers. It's easier to be kinder to friends. It's easier to be kinder to friends than you are to your family members, and easier to be kinder to your family members than you are to your spouse.
Yep.
And easier to be kinder to your spouse than you are to yourself.
That is my biggest insecurity, is that right there. Because I feel like I do great with strangers. I have a great emotional, capacity for that.
Yeah.
To go on tour, to go play a show, meet these people, be best friends with them, love them. But to do long-term relationships, again, this is vulnerable. I don't know what you do to people, but I'm just like, I'm giving you all my secrets here. For me,
it's my superpower.
It is, because I'm like, I don't tell people this, because it's you always want to put off that you're doing great, that you're successful, and they're all this, and it's hard to be raw sometimes and just say like, nah, like, I mean, I think my music is doing great, but I mean, it was hard to make a living off of it at first. You know, I went vegan for 6 months because that was the cheapest option. I'm not even joking. I was like, okay, I can eat rice and beans every day because that's what I can afford. I'm vegan. Literally, that's what I did to survive, you know? And, but, you know, I think about being, that is so scary for me, is to have long-term relationships, because that was a challenge to mine. For me, it was easy to just shed people. And just, okay, I make friends every day. I'll just make. And so now when I have these relationships, like that guy Angel that I told you I called when I was 16,
yes,
I just talked to him like a week ago, and we're still homies, you know. And that's been 16 years, and I cherish, you know, my best friend Jesse, who's the bass player for my band. You know, we met each other as missionaries out in Panama, and we just clicked and became best friends. He's my best friend in the world. And I cherish that relationship. That's a 10-year, that's a decade. And I'm like, I wear that badge of honor. That's 10 years that I love this guy and he loves me. Yeah. And so now being older, I've learned to just really appreciate those type of friendships. You know, we saw Rochelle earlier, and what you guys have in those bonds. And I put every ounce of effort I can into those relationships, letting those people know. And that is what I'm trying right now. That's what I struggle with is those long-term big ones, because you're right. It's a lot easier to be nicer to fans that are like, I love your music and I'll be nice to you, and then go home and be a crappy person to my family, you know, like, you'll still love me tomorrow, you know,
right. You're stuck with me.
Yeah, you're stuck, you know. That's a big insecurity of mine. I'm working on it.
I can appreciate that, but you're mindful of that, and you will make a difference in your relationship. Hold on to those treasures that you've been talking about. Remember that she is your best friend. Remember to lift her up in any way. My favorite thing in the whole world is to dress up nice and walk around the corner and hear my husband go, dang!
That's awesome. Yeah.
That is my favorite thing in the world. And he never, ever uses that as a power tool against me. Yeah. Never. And I never want to use anything against him that hurts him. He is my best friend. Yeah. And we have life adventures together. And that isn't always an uphill climb. Yeah. You know, sometimes it's a free fall.
Yeah, I remember meeting you guys and just thinking like, that's awesome. They're in love. You can tell. Because you can just tell with certain people.
And do you know, that's 16 years.
That's a long time. That's a long time. I just got my driver's license, you know. That's a long time. And that's a badge. That's a badge of honor, and celebrate that.
Thank you.
Because that's not easy to do. 16, I mean, if you had told me, and I'm not saying this just because there's cameras or anything, but if you had told me you guys had just gotten married this year, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Honeymoon phase. Right. And you guys have not got off that honeymoon, and that is so important. Yep. You know, and I think a lot of that comes from you find the right people that do that, because it's not hard.
That's right.
If you get a lot of these marriages that burn out, and again, like I'm not an authority on marriage. I don't have kids. I'm not an authority on parenting.
You're no therapist.
I'm no therapist, but I get it. That's awesome. That's my favorite part. But yeah, like I look at it and I'm like, if you're unhappy in your marriage, then work on yourself, but put effort into your companion. Mm-hmm. Do it that way. Be who you want to be.
Yeah.
And
there are key values that have to be in place with a relationship.
I think so
just
too.
as you have to have those key values in any kind of career, in work, right?
Well, just being a musician. Like I've had the privilege of working with some great musicians, and some of them, I don't want to say they don't have it, but it's like once they understand what it takes, it's not for them. And it's like, yeah, this is hard. Mm-hmm. This is my entire, think about it this way, if this doesn't scare you. My entire livelihood and success depends on the opinion of others. Isn't that terrifying? I'll say that again, just for anybody that wants to Venmo me or take care of me. My entire
adopt him.
career, pay for my album, music video. My entire career and success depends on the opinion of others. To go even further, the opinions of strangers.
This is true.
That is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what it takes to put on a show, to sell out a concert? It's like, dude, I've got to put myself out there and give people a reason why on their Friday they're going to spend X amount of money to come get dressed, spend the gas, park, get food, see me play, instead of stay at home in their underwear and hang out and watch Netflix. Like, that's what I got to compete with.
True.
And that is so hard. And in marriage, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, we talk about the divorce rate being so high, and I'm like, well, marry the right person when you're ready. Yeah. I don't think there's a time limit on it. I've been dating Samantha for 3 years, and I know some people are like, what's wrong with you guys? I'm like, this is what I want. This is what we want. This is what she wants, and I think just with relationships, it's like, sometimes your best friends, they're easy, it just makes sense. It just clicks.
Yep.
I've had friendships that were hard, and they're not friends anymore. It's the saddest thing when I think about the people I've lost or cut out in the last 10 years, where I'm like, there was a time we were friends, but it was work, more work than anything else.
And they were that chapter in your life that you needed to have in your life so that you could enrich your life experience even more.
I would say, and this is, if Twitter was ever going to get mad at a statement I was going to say, it's going to be right now. This might be controversial, so hold on, buckle up.
Ooh, okay.
I was going to say, any experience, this is tough, any experience can eventually be turned into a positive learning experience. Now, I know that there are issues like rape. I know there's divorce, there's death, there's those things. And I'm not saying you'll ever come to a point where you're like, oh, I'm glad that happened. I don't think you'll ever come from that. But I believe, having gone through several of experiences similar to those topics, that there can come a time where I can use that pain as power to empower myself. And not that those things will ever be good things. Like, I just want to clear that up so there's not snippet, and that just, gets taken out of context. But a divorce, a death of a loved one. There are things that you can take from life, and I feel that this is this way because God is not only just, he's merciful. And that when death comes, don't you appreciate life a little bit more? When you lose a best friend, you start thinking, I'm going to make sure my other best friend knows I love them. Mm-hmm. When you lose a job, you start to understand the value of hard work and savings. When the times that I've slept on the floor or concrete because, that's all I had, or the times that I've lived in a car, or the times that I've been, heck, when Samantha and I first started dating, my car was repossessed, and I told her it was just in the shop. I said, oh yeah, I got a car. It's in the shop. And, I'm grateful for those times. We'll go on dates and I'll be driving and I'll look over and say, you remember when my car was repossessed? And we laugh. Mm-hmm. And so I hope that when people go through a bad or a traumatic experience, they can eventually someday find a power from it to turn it positive to them and not be re-hurt by that experience.
Yes. Yes, that would be.
That was a long explanation, right? But hopefully that made sense. I'm not saying those bad things are good.
Seriously, that would be the biggest gift that I could wish upon anyone who's going through experiences. And honestly, that's part of the reason why I do this podcast.
Yeah.
Because I want those stories of triumph over trial, thriving versus surviving, right?
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite superheroes is Wonder Woman. And she has a statement that I hold on to, and that is sometimes you don't know what you're learning until you come out the other side.
That's great.
So hold on. It's going to get better.
Yeah.
And if you choose to see the blessing in the experience, it will enrich your life, and it will make you the kind of person that empowers others around you.
Yeah. I love that. Because there are a lot of experiences that I've gone through, and at the time I think, oh, I wish this would have gone this way. And then I leave later and I think that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I think about that with my divorce. It was the hardest time, and now I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful because it led me to Sam, you know, and I'm not to get too religious or anything like that, but I once had this talk with this friend, and we were talking about the term of seeking forgiveness from God, or, you know, as they call it, repentance. And this friend said, I'm grateful that I did drugs and that I slept around and I did this thing because I learned from it. And I challenged that thought because she said she was grateful she went through all these terrible experiences. And I said, I think you're grateful for the grace that comes from growing from those experiences. You know, I think you're, you know, because me, I'm like, I'm not grateful that for some of the pain that I went through, you know, some of the abuse or some of the other stuff. Like, I'm not grateful for that. I'm grateful that I live in a world and a time where I worship the God that I do, that allows me to heal from those things, to change, forgive, grow, and turn my pain into power. I'm grateful for that. But I know what they were trying to say, you know, basically that same thing. But I was just like, I'm a stickler for when people say certain things, because I'm like, there's power in what you're saying. So like, just make sure you're not giving that pain power.
Yes.
You are taking the power away from that
Right.
pain, and you're putting it into yourself.
Oh, so beautiful. Ophi, this has been so delicious. First of all, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your stories. I know if I could, I'd be writing down all kinds of notes. So I would admonish my listeners, get out your notepad, write down some of these juicy nuggets, and hold on to them. I want to know, what are you doing with your music right now, my friend?
Thank you for having me, and this was awesome. You know, it was. It's thank you, and I love what you're doing, and keep doing it.
Thank you.
Keep bringing people to power. Keep doing that. As far as my music, so currently I have gone through so much beta testing, and when you're in a band and you look at it as a business, it's a business. You get a product and you work on that product until it's ready. Then you market it and you do it. That's where we're at. I put out some singles. You know, we talked about A Little Bit Dangerous was kind of my first, like, hey, this guy's actually kind of good. Let's listen to this song. And so
It's one of my favorites.
It's a great song. Don't get me wrong. But I've gone through, you know, we just left the studio. We've written over 50 songs, recorded 20, and then pick the top 6. And that will be the EP. And that's the stage that we're in right now. We just tracked drums, bass. Today was the last day finishing the rhythm guitars. Tomorrow my lead guitarist comes and he'll do some leads. And then we do my favorite part, which is vocals. That's what I do. I sing. You know, that's my thing. And we get to do all that for the next week and a half, 2 weeks, however long it takes. And that EP will be what I'm pouring everything into. That is I believe it. I believe these songs are, you know, some of you might be wondering what genre, because you can't tell by the way I look. It's like, is it reggae? Is it rap? Is it hip hop?
Right.
It's rock, you know, it's rock. And the best way to say it is it's heart rock. And I'm coining that phrase. Don't steal it, anybody, please. I haven't gotten a chance to trademark it yet. Just wait. Yeah. Hashtag
Ophi band heart rock.
Heart rock. Because that's it. It's not, you know, you guys have come to the shows, and the coolest part is you'll see 7-year-olds and 70-year-olds rocking out.
It's so true.
It's the craziest thing for me.
Sometimes I feel like I'm one of the oldest people
No.
in there, and I'm not.
And you'll see gray, white hair rocking out. And it's because I care about a melody. I care about what power in words. I care about my message. And it's just like you feel something. It's the best compliment I've ever been given at our shows is I could feel your songs.
Yes.
So once we put this EP out, right now everything's just kind of going through my Instagram, Ophi Band, plug. And then it will be the first single, which I think is the one. It's a cool experience. You know, I'm working with this producer. I won't say names yet, but he said, you know what the coolest part in a band, like the coolest moment is? He said about 2 to 3 weeks before they get signed to a major label. That, like, hearing that, I'm like, whoa, that sounds so awesome. Because it's just this, oh my gosh, maybe, what if? And then it happens. And so for us, I feel like I found a few singles that will change my life. And I've written great songs, but these new ones, I'm like, I would be proud if people said, have you ever heard of Ophi? And they say, what? And they start singing this song. That's the song I think I've made. I think I made 6 of them. So we're recording that, and then we're hoping to, we're going to do a huge marketing campaign, do a Spotify campaign, a TikTok campaign, music videos, and then an actual feature film with a good director buddy of mine that was like, hey, I want to do this movie, and it's kind of loosely based on what you've been going through. So I want you to do this, and then let's get some music. So I just think in the next year of my life, you know, obviously my highlight is getting married soon. I'll be married in June. And then it's just going to be like, I got my best friend. I've got my songs. I've got life will be good. I'll just, everything I've ever dreamed of, I'm getting.
Yeah. Excellent. Love it. Thank you, Ophi. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Anytime.
If you've enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe, share, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram. Please comment because I would love to hear about what you think and what you want to see in the future. I'm no therapist, but I am your host, Stephanie Goodman.